by my dynamic, by the volume. I'm not trying to play everything that I can into that song. I mean, if I wanted to, I could really just, the sound would clip, it would sound terrible. But I'm trying to provide as much what we call texture within the music. And so that's where I talk about this in the article. Texture, creating like little musical phrases and little parts. I mean, if you listen to any symphony, you'll hear that within the music. You won't hear, all the songs. You can do that. That's, probably get into the way. But the way this intro is on the recording, I mean, you can't, now let's go back. You can't mimic, to replicate everything that you hear, but what you can mimic, here's something that you can do with the MP3. You can mimic the dynamics. You can mimic the arrangement. You can mimic the overall feel, the overall emotion. So those are things that you actually can copy within the MP3. And like even what I was playing here, you may be thinking, yeah, but that's probably too much for me, Branon. Maybe it's just maybe it's something that simple. But as you can see, as I just played it, that dynamic and that emotion matched what I was doing earlier. It also matched what we just heard on the guide track right here. So again, the better that you can do that in mimicking, it's almost like you're evoking what you're hearing in the example. So those are some healthy things that you can do to copy the song. Not really copying the part, but you're actually copying the overall feel. And I'll say this too, and I'm sorry to rabbit trail, but I think it's important to say this as well. This right here is exactly how jazz musicians learned all their music. They learned by listening to records, listening to Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, Cole Porter, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker. I mean, all these great Miles Davis. I mean, Dizzy Gillespie, Jelly Roll Morton. I mean, there's all of these fantastic musicians, right? And what they've done is they wouldn't actually copy everything, every note by note that they would play, but actually there was a lot of times that they would to learn the song as an exercise. But what those musicians did in the jazz era, they would listen to how they would play the notes. They would listen to the emotion. They would listen to the tone that's coming out of that song. And maybe, yeah, they copied the licks exactly, but then what would happen later on, as they kept practicing the music and playing it more and more often with the band, they would turn it into their own and make that lick or make that riff their own. And then it sounded like it came from them because they put their own spin on it. Now that right there is showing great musical creativity. So there's tons of things that you can do with music. So let's jump down to the verse. Now I want to talk about how the music moves from this momentum from the intro right into the verse. Okay, so let's go to that. Ready? And here's the verse. And overwhelmed, right? I'm overwhelmed by you. So we have this, you can hear the organ come in, the drums are slightly coming up. So if you pick this song apart, there's a lot of great things going on. So there's a difference between, the verse. And we have the chorus. I delight myself in you, captivated by your mercy. Then the song opens up. So that's what I was trying to illustrate in this article right here, is that we start off with this rhythm and the verses here, then we get to the chorus, it just kind of launches out. So what's your thought about that? I mean, have you thought about maybe helping your band rearrange things like that? I mean, because this will really get your creative juices going. And if you follow this article that I wrote, this will give you some more tidbits and some more ideas. You want to build up the song with dynamics, and always, I think it's so important. When we do song, that we're actually, when we're doing song, that we're actually making good dynamics. We're doing good builds. And I'm just tuning real quick. So we bring this to the guitar. I delight myself in you, captivated by your beauty. I'm overwhelmed by you. And so, even as I'm playing here, I'm not trying to accomplish everything that I can within the guitar part. I'm trying to make sure that as I do the part of my playing, I'm trying to fit in what's happening with what I hear within the band. So, for instance, if we go back to this track, this is how I would fit into what the band is doing. Let me just play that on the chorus, and I'll back that up a bit. So we have this. So we're still in the verse right here. So here's the chorus. Okay, so even right there, I'm not trying to give it all. I'm not, I'm not trying to make a lot of noise. I'm just trying to play the parts. And even when we get down to the verse right here, let's keep this going, and I'll just demonstrate on guitar how I would play with this if I was a band. All right, playing with the band, that is. I want to turn the organ down just a little bit. Let's make it more background. So you can tell other instruments, hey, maybe bring your volume down just a little bit, or hey, lay out here. There's different things that you can do. Now here's the verse. And I'm just muting. So, and that crash cymbal was a little bit too loud. So, I would ask, if your drummer does that, that's a great example. I would, make sure that you let people know within your team, hey, can you pull back a little bit on that volume on, is the snare drum or is the crash cymbal, whatever. That's something that I do within my own team. I'm always trying to look for things that would bring the sound and fullness of the band to the front and center. Even that crash cymbal that we heard. I mean, you got a drummer that they love to do fills, right? And they love to crash that cymbal every fourth bar or something. Encourage your drummer to say, hey, just say it this way. I love what you're doing, but maybe instead of every 4 bars, can you crash the cymbal every 16 bars? Do I hear a 32 bar, 48 bar, 64? No. But you want to have them space it out a bit. And even, encourage them. If you have a guitar player that they got a great tone, but maybe their distortion is a bit too loud, just ask them, say, hey, can you bring down your guitar just a little bit on this one section? What you're doing sounds great, and I really like for that to blend in with the rest of the team. So there's different ways that you can speak to your band, and I think that's the number one problem that a lot of worship leaders and people have, is that they're really not working their band. Could be that they're too afraid to say anything, or how do you say something, or even I don't even know how to arrange music. That's the reason why we're doing this broadcast, and that's why I'm talking about this in the article, is to give you some tools, to give you some things to think about that will help you. So Mike says this. He says, I think transitioning from song to song incorrectly can ruin the dynamics. Yes, amen. And he says, not just the song, but the overall feel, praise, and worship. Nothing worse than dead space between songs. In the example, the MD having a talk back mic is huge, even when the rehearsal is spot on, since the Spirit can dictate the flow of the service. Wow, that's a lot. I love that, Mike. Thank you for that word. Great stuff, man. Yeah, I think that when we go from song to song, that is huge. Let's say we come out of, overwhelm. That's a great point. We come out of overwhelm, and overwhelmed, right? I'm overwhelmed by you. And then let's say we go into how he loves, right? And oh, how he loves us. Oh, that's real high, okay? He loves us. So I think, if we came out of overwhelmed, captivated by your mercy, I'm overwhelmed by you. How he loves us, oh, and how he loves us, oh, he loves us, oh. Now I'm just kind of making up that part. I'm not really trying to do it like, recording or anything, but I'm ad-libbing a bit here because then, I'm kind of transitioning and getting into that feel for doing, How He Loves or whatever other song that fits. Now, talking a little bit about that, it's not in the article, by